The first time Damon told me I needed to learn how to handle men like him, I laughed. Not because it was funny, mostly because I had absolutely no idea what he meant. We were sitting in his car, outside my apartment, the engine running, rain tapping against the windshield. He had just spent the last 20 minutes listening to me complain about another terrible date, and apparently he'd finally reached his limit. "You know what your problem is?" he asked. I looked over at him. "My personality." He shook his head. "You don't know how to deal with confident men." I laughed. "That's your diagnosis?" "Pretty much." Damon said it so casually that I almost ignored him. Almost, because Damon wasn't just some guy giving me dating advice. He was my best friend's older brother, and I'd had a ridiculous crush on him for years. My best friend Tyler and I had known each other since college. We'd met during our first semester when he accidentally walked into the wrong lecture hall and sat beside me for 40 minutes before realizing he wasn't even taking the class. Somehow that turned into a friendship, then an apartment, then years of knowing each other's habits, family drama, terrible dating decisions, and embarrassing secrets, which meant I'd known Damon for almost as long. Damon was 5 years older than us, 30 now, tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair, usually some amount of stubble, and the kind of calm confidence that made people automatically listen when he spoke. He wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. Whenever Damon walked into a room, people noticed. I'd noticed him long before I admitted to myself that I had. The problem was that Damon had always treated me like Tyler's little brother. Not literally, but close enough. He'd tease me at family dinners, give me advice I hadn't asked for, call me out whenever Tyler and I were being idiots, and occasionally show up at our apartment with food because apparently neither of us could be trusted to feed ourselves properly. He was the responsible one, the adult, the guy who always seemed to know what he was doing, which was exactly why I'd never told him how I felt until recently. Not directly, anyway. But something had changed. I'd started dating more, and apparently, according to Damon, I was terrible at it. "You let guys walk all over you," he said. "I do not." "You absolutely do." I crossed my arms. "Give me one example." He glanced at me. "The guy from last week." I groaned. "Don't remind me. You went out with him 3 times. "Yeah." "He cancelled the 4th date 2 hours before." "I know." "And then you apologized." I stared at him. "Okay, that sounds bad when you say it like that." "Because it was bad." I sank lower in the passenger seat. Damon smiled. "You're too nice." "That's not a crime." "No, but it makes you easy to manipulate." I looked at him again. There was something different about his expression now. Less teasing, more serious. What am I supposed to do then?" He shrugged. "Learn how people work." "And you're an expert?" His mouth curved into a small smile. "I've dated enough men to know when someone is playing games." That caught me off guard. I'd known Damon dated men. At least I knew he dated both men and women. It wasn't exactly a secret. But we'd never talked about it. Not really. I looked out through the windshield. "So what? You think I'm clueless?" "I think you're inexperienced." "That's nicer." "It's also true." I laughed despite myself. The rain had gotten heavier, and the parking lot outside my building was almost empty. Damon turned the volume on the radio down. "Want to know why you keep getting nervous around guys you like?" I hesitated. "Why?" "Because you give them all the power before they've earned it." That one actually made me quiet. Damon watched me for a moment. "You meet a guy you find attractive, and suddenly you're worried about whether he likes you. Isn't that normal?" "Sure, but you're forgetting to ask yourself whether you even like him." I hadn't thought about it that way. He continued. "You spend the whole date trying to impress them." "I don't." "You do." "I really don't." "You do, Marcel." The way he said my name made something uncomfortable flutter in my chest. He leaned back in his seat. "You're not supposed to convince someone to like you." I stared at him. "Then what am I supposed to do? Let them show you who they are?" Simple. Almost annoyingly simple. I nodded slowly. "Okay." Damon smiled. "Good." I reached for the door handle, then stopped. "Wait." He looked over. "If you're such an expert, why are you helping me?" For the first time that night, Damon didn't immediately answer. His eyes stayed on mine. 1 second, 2, then he looked away. Because I don't like watching you get hurt. My heart skipped. I tried to laugh it off. That's almost sweet. Don't get used to it. I opened the door. Good night, Damon. Night, Marcel. I stepped out into the rain. I made it halfway to the entrance before my phone buzzed. I pulled it from my pocket. Damon. And Marcel? I stopped. Yeah? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, next time, don't tell a guy you like him before he tells you what he wants. I stared at the message. Then another one appeared. Men like that can smell desperation. I laughed quietly. And what exactly are men like that? This time his response came immediately. Men like me. I stopped smiling. I read it again, then again. Before I could decide whether he'd been joking, another message appeared. See you Sunday. I locked my phone, and for the first time since I'd known Damon, I had absolutely no idea what he was thinking, which, unfortunately, made me want to know more. Sunday came faster than I wanted. I spent most of the day pretending I wasn't thinking about Damon, which obviously meant I was thinking about Damon constantly. I kept replaying that message in my head, men like me. Maybe he'd been joking. He probably had. Damon was sarcastic by nature. He liked messing with people, especially me. Still, there was something about the way he'd looked at me that night that I couldn't shake. By 6, I was at Tyler's parents' house for dinner. It was a regular family thing. Tyler had invited me because his mom made too much food, which was basically her way of saying she expected me to show up. I walked through the front door and immediately heard Tyler yelling from upstairs, "Marcel, you're late! I'm literally 5 minutes early. That's late for you." I laughed and dropped my jacket over the chair. Then I heard another voice from the kitchen, "Leave him alone." Damon. My stomach immediately tightened. I walked into the kitchen. Damon was standing at the counter, sleeves rolled up, cutting vegetables. He glanced over. "Hey." Just one word. Normal. Casual. Like he hadn't spent Friday night telling me I needed to learn how to handle men like him. "Hey," I replied. His eyes stayed on me for another second, then he looked back at the cutting board. Tyler came downstairs and immediately shoved a beer into my hand. "There. Now you're officially here." "Thanks. You look tired." "I am." Damon glanced over. "Bad date?" I almost choked on my drink. Tyler looked between us. "What date?" "Nothing," I said quickly. Damon smiled. "Marcel had another disaster." "Seriously?" Tyler laughed. "Who was it this time?" I shook my head. "Can we not?" Tyler immediately looked at Damon. "What did you tell him?" Damon shrugged. "Just gave him some advice." Tyler laughed. "That's dangerous." "Why?" "Because Damon thinks he's some kind of relationship expert." Damon gave him a look. "I've been in more relationships than you." "Yeah, and half of them ended terribly." "Still more experience." I tried not to smile. Tyler wandered away, leaving us alone for a moment. Damon lowered his voice. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You seem nervous." "I'm not." He smiled slightly. "You are." I looked at him. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "Acting like you know exactly what I'm thinking." "Maybe I do." Before I could answer, Tyler shouted from the living room, "Damon, Mom needs you." Damon sighed. "Coming." He walked past me. As he did, his shoulder brushed mine. It was nothing, barely even a touch, but I felt it. And judging by the tiny pause in his step, so did he. Dinner was loud. Tyler talked about work. His mom complained about the neighbor. His dad spent 20 minutes explaining some complicated problem with his truck. I mostly listened. Damon sat across from me. Every once in a while, our eyes met. Neither of us said anything. After dinner, Tyler disappeared upstairs to take a phone call. I went outside. The backyard was quiet, the air cool enough that I immediately regretted leaving my jacket inside. I leaned against the railing. A few minutes later, the back door opened. I didn't have to turn around. "You're avoiding everyone." Damon. I needed air. He stepped beside me. "Cold?" "A little." He looked at me. "You should have brought your jacket." "It's inside." He shook his head. Then, without saying anything else, he took off his own jacket and held it out. I stared at him. "I'm fine." "Marcel." That tone again. The one that somehow made arguing feel pointless. I took the jacket. Thanks. He leaned against the railing. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said, So, have you tried what I told you? I frowned. Which part? Not chasing. I looked at him. That's been 2 days. And I haven't chased anyone. Good. He nodded approvingly. You're learning. I laughed. You make it sound like I'm some kind of student. Damon turned toward me. Maybe you are. I raised an eyebrow. Then what's the lesson? His expression changed slightly. He looked almost amused. Knowing when someone wants you. My heartbeat picked up, and how do I know? You watch what they do. That's it? Actions tell you more than words. I nodded. Okay. He looked at me for a moment. Like right now. I swallowed. What? If I wanted to keep my distance from you, would I be standing this close? I suddenly became very aware of the small space between us. No. Exactly. Neither of us moved. The backyard seemed strangely quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator through the open kitchen door. Damon's gaze dropped briefly to my mouth, then returned to my eyes. My heart was pounding. Damon. He smiled faintly. Relax. I am relaxed. You're terrible at lying. I laughed nervously. He stepped back. Just like that, the tension broke. Come on, he said, before Tyler starts wondering where we disappeared to. I followed him inside. But something had changed. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Damon was flirting with me, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do about it. Later that night, after I got home, my phone buzzed. Damon. You forgot my jacket. I looked at the jacket hanging over my chair. You gave it to me, I know. Keep it. I smiled. Why? His answer took longer this time. So you remember what I told you? I frowned. Which part? The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, don't chase me. I stared at the screen, and before I could respond, another message arrived. I'll come to you. For the next few days, I tried to convince myself that Damon had been messing with me. It was easier that way, because the alternative was admitting that my best friend's older brother had basically told me he was interested in me, and I had no idea what to do with that. I kept his jacket on the back of my desk chair. I told myself I hadn't washed it because I hadn't gotten around to it. That was a lie. I liked the faint smell of his cologne. That was an even bigger problem. By Wednesday, I'd almost convinced myself to stop thinking about it. Then Damon showed up at my apartment unannounced. I was standing in the kitchen making pasta when I heard 3 knocks at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Damon was standing there with a paper bag in one hand. Hey! I stared at him. What are you doing here? He held up the bag. Bribery. For what? Let me in first. I stepped aside. He walked in like he'd been there 100 times, which technically he had. He set the bag on the kitchen counter. Tyler said you're working late tonight. I am. Then you probably haven't eaten. I looked inside the bag. Takeout. My favorite place. I looked back at him. You remembered? Of course. Something about that hit me harder than it should have. Damon noticed. What? Nothing. He leaned against the counter. You're doing it again. Doing what? Overthinking. I rolled my eyes. You've known me for years. You can't suddenly diagnose everything I do. Actually, I can. You're annoying. I've been told. I laughed. For a few minutes, things felt normal, comfortable, like they always had. Then Damon noticed his jacket hanging over the chair, so he pointed at it. You're still keeping that? You told me to. I did. He walked over and picked it up. I watched him turn it over in his hands. You could have returned it. You said to keep it. I know. He looked at me. You're very obedient when you want to be. I nearly dropped my fork. Damon laughed. Relax, I'm kidding. You're terrible. Maybe. He put the jacket back down. Then his expression became more serious. Marcel. Yeah? I need to ask you something. My stomach tightened. Okay. Are you uncomfortable around me? I blinked. No. Are you sure? Yes. He nodded slowly. Because if you are, tell me. I'd tell you. I mean it. I know. There was a pause. Then I asked the question I'd been avoiding. Are you actually flirting with me? Damon didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the counter, then back at me. Yes? My heart practically stopped. No joke, no teasing, just, yes, I didn't know what to say. Damon gave a small, almost nervous laugh. I figured you deserved an honest answer. Why me? He frowned. What do you mean? Why are you doing this with me? He leaned against the counter again. Because I've liked you for a while. I stared at him. How long? Long enough. Damon. He smiled. Maybe a year. A year? Give or take. I couldn't believe it. You never said anything. Neither did you. I thought you saw me as Tyler's annoying friend. You are Tyler's annoying friend. I laughed. Thanks. But you're also Marcel. That quieted me. He looked at me differently then. Not like Tyler's friend, not like someone younger, just me. I didn't want to make things complicated. He said, You're important to Tyler. You're important to me. I swallowed. So what changed? You did. I frowned. What? You started dating. I stared at him. Damon shrugged. I realized I didn't like seeing you with other guys. That made my chest tighten. That's not exactly fair. I know. Then why tell me? Because pretending I don't care wasn't working. We stood there in silence, then he smiled slightly. Besides, I told you. Told me what? Don't chase me. I smiled despite myself. You're really sticking with that. Absolutely. He picked up the takeout bag. Eat your food. I laughed. You're leaving? Yeah. That's it? He looked at me. What were you expecting? I don't know. Good. He walked toward the door, then stopped. He turned around. One more thing. What? If you want this to go anywhere, don't let me make all the moves. My eyebrows lifted. I thought you said not to chase you. I said, don't chase me. He smiled. There's a difference between chasing someone and meeting them halfway. Then he opened the door. I watched him walk down the hallway. Just before he reached the stairs, he turned around. Sunday. I nodded. Sunday. Good. Then he disappeared. I closed the door. For a long moment, I just stood there. Damon liked me, actually liked me, and somehow, instead of making me feel confident, it made me even more nervous, because now I had something to lose. And Sunday suddenly felt very far away. Sunday was supposed to be simple, dinner at Tyler's parents' house, a little conversation, maybe some teasing from Tyler, then I'd go home. That was the plan. It stopped being simple about 20 minutes after I arrived. Tyler had invited a few friends over, and one of them brought his co-worker, Ryan. I'd met Ryan once before. He was friendly, confident, and apparently very interested in me. Within 10 minutes, he was sitting beside me on the couch, asking about my work. So, you're a designer? Yeah. That's actually pretty cool. Sometimes. He smiled. You should show me some of your stuff. Sure. He leaned a little closer. I didn't move, not because I was particularly interested in him. Honestly, I was distracted, because across the room, Damon was watching us. He was talking to Tyler's dad, but his attention kept drifting back toward me. I caught him doing it 3 times. The 4th time, our eyes met. His expression was unreadable. Then Ryan laughed at something I said and lightly touched my arm. Damon looked away. I tried not to smile. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe not. Ryan eventually asked, You seeing anyone? Before I could answer, Tyler suddenly shouted from the kitchen, Marcel, help me with these plates. I stood up. Coming. Ryan smiled. I'll catch you later. Yeah. I walked into the kitchen. Tyler was nowhere near the plates. Instead, Damon was standing beside the counter. I stopped. Where's Tyler? Living room. I frowned. He told me to help with plates. Damon nodded toward the doorway. He's an idiot. I laughed. True. I reached for a stack of plates. Damon didn't move. Ryan seems interested. I looked at him. Maybe. He nodded. You like him? I barely know him. That's not what I asked. I put the plates down. Why? Why what? Why do you care? He looked at me. I told you I like you. Yeah, so I care. There was something almost vulnerable about the way he said it. That surprised me. I had always imagined Damon as completely confident, like nothing could shake him, but standing there, looking at me, he seemed just as uncertain as I was. I softened. You don't have to be jealous. I'm not jealous. I smiled. You're a terrible liar. He laughed under his breath. Maybe a little. A little? Fine. He sighed. More than a little. I couldn't help laughing. Damon stepped closer. Don't make fun of me. I'm not. You are. I'm enjoying this. That's cruel. I grinned. Maybe I'm learning. He smiled. Good. Then someone walked into the kitchen. We immediately stepped apart. It was Tyler. He looked between us. Why are you two standing in here like you're planning a crime? Damon answered instantly. Marcel was helping me with the plates. Tyler looked at the completely untouched stack. Right. I tried not to laugh. Later that evening I was getting ready to leave when Ryan caught up with me outside. Hey. I turned. What's up? He shoved his hands into his pockets. I was wondering if you'd want to grab coffee sometime. I hesitated. He was nice, and under normal circumstances I probably would have said yes, but these weren't normal circumstances. I'd like that. His face brightened. Really? Yeah. Cool. I'll text you. Sounds good. He smiled and walked away. I turned toward my car. Damon was standing by the front door. He'd seen everything. I walked toward him. You okay? Yeah. You sure? Absolutely. I stopped in front of him. You don't look okay. He smiled faintly. I'm fine. I raised an eyebrow. He sighed. Okay, I'm slightly annoyed. Why? Because he asked you out. You said you wanted me to stop chasing you. I do. So what's the problem? Damon looked at me. I didn't say I wanted other guys to stop chasing you. I laughed. That's exactly what you're saying. He shook his head. No. He stepped closer. I want you to have choices. Then why are you jealous? Because I want you to choose me. That shut me up. Damon looked almost embarrassed by his own honesty. I know I don't have any right to ask that yet. You don't. I know. He nodded, but I still want it. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then he reached out and gently straightened the collar of my shirt. The gesture was so small, so innocent, but it made my heart pound. His fingers lingered for half a second before he pulled away. Drive safe. I smiled. You too. I got into my car. Before I started the engine, my phone buzzed. Damon and Marcel? I looked toward the house. He was still standing there. Me. Yeah? Damon. Coffee's fine. I smiled. Damon. Just don't let him make you forget what you learned. I looked through the windshield at him. Then another message arrived, especially the part about knowing what you want. I stared at the screen because suddenly I knew exactly what I wanted. And it wasn't Ryan. I didn't go for coffee with Ryan. Not because Damon had told me not to. That was the strange part. For once, I made the decision myself. Ryan texted me Monday morning. Still good for coffee this week? I stared at the message for a while before answering. Honestly, I don't think I should. A few seconds later. Everything okay? Yeah, you're a great guy. I just don't think I'm interested in taking it further. He took it surprisingly well. Fair enough. Thanks for being honest. I put my phone down and immediately thought about Damon. That was becoming a problem. Because every time something happened, my first instinct was to wonder what he would say. By Thursday, I'd gone almost 4 days without seeing him. I told myself I didn't care. Then Tyler called. Hey, you busy tonight? Not really. Come over. Why? Damon's here. My stomach immediately flipped. I hated that Tyler could still casually say things like that without realizing what they did to me. Okay, I said. When I arrived, Tyler was in the living room playing video games. Damon was in the kitchen. He looked up when I walked in and smiled. Not the polite smile he'd given me at dinner. A real one. Hey, Marcel. Hey. Tyler glanced over. You two are weird. I froze. Damon laughed. How? I don't know. Tyler went back to his game. You're just weird. Damon shook his head. I walked into the kitchen. You've been busy? Work. How's that? Same. He opened the refrigerator. You hungry? Not really. You sure? Yeah. He looked at me. You've been avoiding me. My eyebrows shot up. I have not. You haven't texted me. You told me not to chase you. He smiled. That's not what I meant. I know. He closed the refrigerator. So you were waiting for me to text? Maybe. He nodded. Good. I laughed. You're impossible. Probably. There was a pause. Then he said, I'm proud of you. I looked at him. For what? Ryan. I frowned. You know about that. Tyler mentioned you turned him down. Of course he did. Damon smiled. You did the right thing. I wasn't interested. Exactly. He leaned against the counter. You didn't say no because I told you to. No. You said no because you knew what you wanted. I nodded. He seemed genuinely pleased. Then something changed in his expression. That's the lesson. What lesson? The one I've been trying to teach you. I smiled. Handle men like you. He laughed. Exactly. He stepped closer. So tell me. What? What have you learned? I looked at him. That confident men are annoying. He laughed. Try again. That I shouldn't chase someone just because I like them. Better. That I should pay attention to what people actually do. Good. I hesitated. And that I shouldn't be afraid to choose someone. His smile faded slightly. That's the important one. We were standing close now. Close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off him. He didn't touch me. Neither did I. But the space between us felt different. Marcel. Yeah? Are you choosing me? My heart started pounding. I could have made a joke. I could have changed the subject. Instead, I nodded. Yeah. He took a slow breath. Good. Then Tyler yelled from the living room. Are you guys coming back, or what? We both laughed. Damon stepped away, saved by the idiot. I smiled. Definitely. I started walking toward the living room. Then Damon caught my wrist. Gently, I turned. His expression had changed again. Serious. One thing. What? If we do this... He paused. I don't want you doing it because I'm Tyler's brother. I won't. Or because you've had a crush on me forever. I froze. He smiled slightly. Yeah, I figured that out. I felt my face heat up. You knew. Marcel. He laughed quietly. You were not subtle. I covered my face. Oh my God. He gently pulled my hand down. But if we do this, I want you to know me. I do know you. No. His voice softened. You know the version of me everyone sees. He looked directly into my eyes. I want you to know the rest. That hit differently, because Damon wasn't talking about flirting anymore. He was offering something real. I nodded. Okay. His fingers loosened around my wrist. Then we'll take it slow. How slow? He smiled. Slow enough that neither of us regrets it? I nodded. Deal. He let go. I took one step toward the living room, then he spoke again. Marcel? I looked back. Yeah? His smile returned. You're learning. I laughed. From the worst teacher imaginable. Maybe. He followed me into the living room, and for the first time I wasn't wondering whether Damon wanted me. I knew he did. The scary part was realizing I wanted much more than just his attention. The first person I expected to find out about Damon and me was Tyler. I just didn't expect it to happen that soon. For the next couple of weeks, Damon and I kept things quiet. Not because we were ashamed. We just wanted to figure out what we were doing before everyone else had an opinion about it. And honestly, those weeks were probably the happiest I'd been in a long time. Nothing dramatic happened. That was what made it feel real. Damon would text me during lunch, eat something, I'd send him a picture of whatever terrible sandwich I'd bought. He'd respond, "That's not food." I'd laugh. Sometimes he'd pick me up after work and we'd drive around with no real destination. Sometimes we'd sit in his apartment and talk until midnight, and sometimes we'd barely talk at all. I'd just sit beside him while he watched TV, comfortable enough that silence didn't feel awkward. The biggest surprise was how different Damon was when it was just us. Everyone else saw the confident guy who always knew what to say. With me, he sometimes second-guessed himself. He'd ask if I was okay. He'd wonder whether he was moving too fast. Once, while we were sitting in his car, he admitted something that completely caught me off guard. I was terrified you didn't actually like me. I laughed. You? Yes, me. You act like you're impossible to intimidate. I am. He looked at me. Except when it matters. That stayed with me, because I realized Damon wasn't playing some game. He genuinely cared what I thought. Then came Friday. Tyler invited us all over for drinks. I almost didn't go. Damon texted me beforehand. You coming? Probably. Good. That one word made me smile like an idiot. When I arrived, Damon was already there. He gave me a quick look when I walked in. Nothing obvious. Just that tiny smile I had learned to recognize. I sat beside him on the couch. Tyler was too busy arguing with his friends about some football game to notice anything. At least I thought he was. About an hour later, Damon got up to grab another drink. I followed him into the kitchen. You need help? He smiled. I'm capable of getting a beer. I know. Then why are you following me? I shrugged. Maybe I like your company. He looked at me for a second. Careful. Why? You're making it difficult to behave. I laughed quietly. Then footsteps came from behind us. We turned. Tyler. He stopped in the doorway. His eyes moved from me to Damon, then back to me. He frowned. What? Nothing. He stared a little longer, then he walked away. My stomach dropped. Damon sighed. Well, did he see? Probably. Should we tell him? Damon nodded. I think we should. We found Tyler on the back porch. He was sitting alone. When he saw us, he sighed. Okay. Damon sat down across from him. I stayed standing. Tyler looked between us. Are you two dating? Silence. Damon looked at me. I nodded. Yeah. Tyler stared at us. Then he rubbed his face. How long? A couple weeks. Damon said. A couple weeks? Yeah. Tyler stood up. You've got to be kidding me. Tyler. No. He pointed at Damon. You're my brother. Then at me. You're my best friend. I know. So you two just decided this was a good idea? Damon remained calm. We didn't decide anything until we were sure. Tyler laughed bitterly. Sure? Yes? You've been hiding it from me. We wanted to figure it out first. Tyler looked at me. And you? I swallowed. I like him. Tyler's expression changed. For a moment, he looked genuinely hurt. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know how. He looked away. I would have understood. I wasn't sure. Tyler was quiet. Then he looked at Damon. Do you actually care about him? Damon didn't hesitate. Yes? Tyler nodded slowly. Actually. There was a long silence. Finally, Tyler sighed. I hate this. I looked down. But, he shook his head. I can't exactly tell you who to date. Damon smiled slightly. That's surprisingly mature. Shut up. I laughed. Tyler pointed at me. If you hurt him, I'm coming after you. Damon raised an eyebrow. You're threatening your older brother? I'm warning him. Fair enough. Tyler looked between us again. Then he groaned. This is going to be weird. I smiled. Probably. He shook his head. You two are ridiculous. Then he walked back inside. Damon looked at me. That went better than expected. Yeah. He stepped closer. How are you feeling? Relieved. Good. He reached for my hand. This time he didn't hesitate. His fingers slipped between mine. I looked down, then back at him. Feels strange. What? Holding your hand. He smiled. Good strange? I nodded. Very. He squeezed my hand. Then get used to it. And standing there with him, listening to everyone laughing inside the house, I realized something. The lesson Damon had been trying to teach me wasn't really about handling confident men. It was about handling myself, knowing what I wanted, knowing when to walk away, and maybe most importantly, knowing when something was worth taking a risk for. Damon squeezed my hand again. You okay? I smiled. Yeah. He looked at me. Good. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "Because I'm not going anywhere." And for once, I believed someone without needing proof. For the first time since Damon and I started seeing each other, I thought things were finally easy. Tyler knew. He wasn't thrilled about it, but he wasn't trying to stop us either. Damon and I had settled into something that felt surprisingly natural. Then one Tuesday night, Damon stopped answering my messages. At first, I didn't think much of it. People get busy. He worked long hours, and I'd learned not to panic every time my phone stayed silent. But 1 hour became 3, then 4. By midnight, I was staring at my phone like it had personally offended me. I finally sent one more message. "Everything okay?" Nothing. I told myself to go to sleep. I couldn't. The next morning, Damon finally replied. "Sorry. Had some family stuff." I immediately called him. He answered after a few rings. "Hey." His voice sounded tired. "Or what's going on?" "Nothing you need to worry about." "Damon," he sighed. "I'll explain later." I hated that answer, but I didn't push. That afternoon, he asked me to meet him. We met at the small coffee shop where we'd had our first unofficial date. When I walked in, Damon was already sitting in the corner. He looked exhausted. I sat across from him. "Okay." He looked at me. "Okay, what?" "You said you'd explain." He rubbed his hands together. "I should have told you something before we started this." My stomach tightened. "What?" He hesitated. Then he said, "My last relationship didn't end well." I waited. Damon looked down. His name was Marcus. I didn't interrupt. "We were together for almost 3 years." "Okay. I thought we were going to get married." That surprised me. Damon rarely talked about relationships. Then he cheated on me. I felt my chest tighten. "With someone from work?" He nodded. "Someone I trusted." He stared at the table. I found out because I saw a message on his phone. That's awful. It gets worse. I waited. He told me he'd been unhappy for months. Damon laughed bitterly. And apparently everyone knew except me. I reached across the table. He looked at my hand, then took it. I spent a long time thinking I was stupid. You weren't. I know that now. His thumb moved slowly across my knuckles, but it made me scared. Of what? Of trusting someone again. I squeezed his hand. "Is that why you've been so careful with me?" "Partly." He looked into my eyes. "The other part is that you're different." I smiled slightly. "How?" "You actually tell me when you're upset." I laughed. "Sometimes. More than I do." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that made my heart drop. "I've been waiting for you to decide. I'm too complicated." I stared at him. "Damon, I know." He looked away. "I just needed you to know." I leaned closer. "I'm not going anywhere." He looked back at me. "You don't have to promise that." "I'm not promising forever." He smiled faintly. "I'm just saying, I'm here now." That seemed to hit him harder than anything else. He looked down at our hands, then back at me. "That's all I need." We sat there quietly. After a while he asked, "Can I tell you something else?" "Sure." "I didn't start liking you recently." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "I've liked you since before you knew." "How long?" He smiled. "Remember your 24th birthday?" I thought about it. "The party at Tyler's?" "Yeah." "What about it?" "You got drunk and tried to convince everyone you could beat me at pool." I laughed. "I remember that." "You were terrible." "Thanks." He smiled. "I remember thinking you looked really happy that night." I looked at him. And that's when I realized I was in trouble. My heart skipped. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was scared." "Damon, you're never scared." He laughed softly. "I am when it matters." The same words he'd told me before, except now I understood them. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "I'm glad you finally said something," he smiled. "Me too." We stayed at the cafe until closing. When we stepped outside, it was raining lightly. Damon looked up at the sky. "Of course," I laughed. "What?" "Every important conversation we have happens in the rain. Maybe that's our thing." Kind of cheesy. You're cheesy. You're dating me. Unfortunately. He laughed. Then he pulled me into a hug. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some movie moment. It was just Damon holding me close while rain gathered on his jacket. And somehow, that felt better than anything else. I rested my head against his shoulder. Hey. Yeah? You're not complicated. He was quiet. Then his arms tightened slightly. Neither are you. We stayed like that for another minute. Then he pulled back. His eyes met mine. And this time, neither of us looked away. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing. Damon wasn't teaching me how to handle men anymore. He was teaching me what it felt like to trust one. A few months later, I realized something. Damon had never actually been teaching me how to handle men like him. He'd been teaching me how to stop being afraid of them, and honestly, how to stop being afraid of myself. Things between us weren't perfect. We still argued. Sometimes Damon would get too protective, and I'd remind him I wasn't made of glass. Sometimes I'd overthink something he'd said, and he'd have to remind me that not every quiet moment meant something was wrong. But we learned together, and that mattered more than having some perfect relationship. One Saturday morning, I woke up to a message from Tyler. Mom wants everyone over tonight. I groaned. Another family dinner, then another message appeared. Damon's cooking. That changed my attitude immediately. I smiled. I'll be there. That evening, I arrived at Tyler's parents' house a little early. Damon was outside by the grill. He looked over when he heard the gate. You're early. I wanted to help. You hate helping? I've changed. He laughed. You've definitely changed. I walked over and stood beside him. For a few seconds, we just watched the food cooking. Then Damon handed me a plate. Here. What am I doing? Salad. I stared at him. You brought me here to make salad? You're learning. I laughed. You're never going to let that go, are you? Never. I started helping. A few minutes later, Damon quietly said, remember when you asked me what men like me were? Yeah, I was wrong. I looked at him. About what? There's no such thing as men like me. I smiled. You mean confident, annoying men? Exactly. That's a whole category. He laughed, and then his expression softened. I think I was trying to teach you something I needed to learn myself. I put the plate down. What? That you can't control how someone feels about you. He looked at me. You can only be honest. I nodded, and hope they meet you halfway. Exactly. There was a pause, then I smiled. You met me halfway. He smiled back. Eventually. Very eventually. Still counts. The back door opened. Tyler stepped outside. You two done being disgustingly romantic? Damon rolled his eyes. I go inside. Tyler grinned. Mom's asking where you are. Tell her we're coming. Tyler disappeared again. I looked at Damon. Your family really hates giving us privacy. You're part of the family now. I froze. Damon seemed to realize what he'd said. He looked at me. I smiled. I know what you meant. But secretly, I hoped he meant exactly what I'd heard. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room. Tyler's dad put on an old movie. His mom brought out dessert. At some point, I noticed Damon sitting beside me. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved. I looked around. Nobody was paying attention. Damon quietly reached for my hand. I looked down. His fingers slipped between mine, just like they had that night on the porch. Only this time, there was nothing secret about it. I squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. And I realized how far we'd come. I used to sit across from Damon, wondering whether he liked me. Then I wondered whether he was serious. Then whether I was making a mistake. Then whether we'd survive Tyler finding out. And now? Now I was sitting beside the man I loved while his family watched a terrible movie. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. It was better. It was real. Later that night, Damon walked me to my car. The driveway was quiet. He leaned against the hood. You okay? I smiled. Yeah. You seem happy. I am. He nodded. Good. I looked at him. Can I ask you something? Anything? Why did you really start teaching me all that stuff? He smiled. I told you. No, you gave me the safe answer. He laughed. Fair. He thought for a moment. Because when I first realized I liked you, I was scared you'd never see me that way. I stared at him. So I thought, if I could help you become more confident, maybe you'd eventually realize what you deserved. I smiled. And you thought you were what I deserved? He shrugged. I hoped. I stepped closer. You were. His expression softened. Yeah? Yeah? For a moment we just stood there, and then Damon pulled me into a hug. I rested my head against his chest. Marcel? Yeah? Remember what I told you the first night? Which part? That you shouldn't chase someone who doesn't know what they want. I laughed. Yeah. He pulled back enough to look at me. I know what I want now. My heart skipped. What? He smiled. You. I shook my head, smiling. You really waited until the end to say that. Had to keep you interested. I laughed. You're impossible. And you're still here. I looked at him. Yeah. I was. And I knew I would be. Because Damon hadn't just taught me how to handle confident men. He taught me that love wasn't about trying to convince someone to choose you. It was about finding someone who already wanted to. Someone who could see your insecurities and stay. Someone who could challenge you without changing who you were. Someone who could make you nervous and safe at the same time. Damon had started out as the one person I thought I'd never have. Now he was the person I couldn't imagine my life without. And maybe that was the funniest part of the whole story. I thought Damon was teaching me how to handle men like him. Turns out he was teaching me how to recognize the one man worth holding on to. And when he reached for my hand one more time before I got into my car, I didn't hesitate. I held on.